Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about international capital budgeting. This is a very condensed, very basic example of calculating net present value in an international scenario. So, in essence, when you calculate net present value of a project or a firm, you still do the same thing. You get some cash flows, you discount them by the appropriate rate, and then you get the net present value. What we're doing here is we adding the exchange rate issue when there's different interest rates and all that mess in order to convert it. Okay. Um, so one way to look at international business, it's in the corporate finance perspective. And what I'm going to say next is an oversimplified thing, but it holds true. Pretty much everything you learn about corporate finance within the United States, when you're going to go ahead and apply it to an international setting, the first two basic things that always come in play are exchange rates and interest rates. So you have to add those in the mix in order to then see what the value really is. Can it get more complex than that? Are there more things to look at? Sure, legal environment, we can talk about a lot of different things. But these are the starting points. The key starting point difference between domestic and international business in the corporate finance side is having to include the differences in interest rates and exchange rates. So here we're going to do a simple net present value. We're already going to have the cash flows. We don't have to go through all that cash flow calculation. But in real life, that would happen. You go through the entire cash flow calculation, and then you apply the international conditions. So here's an example. Let's say you have a company. This could be a project. Let's call it a project. I can do the whole company. And this project is dealing in Japan. So we have some information up front. The weighted average cost of capital is going to be 10%, which is also what we're going to use as the discount rate to calculate present value. We're going to say the spot rate, the spot of the indirect quote. We're going to assume we are in the United States. So the spot rate of the indirect quote, it's 110. So how do we get the direct quote? As we know now, we take 1 divided by that. And that's going to be our direct quote. So for foreign exchange. All right, so a little bit more information. This project specifically, as you see down here, is a 2-year project. So we are interested on the interest rates for 1-year bonds and the interest rates for 2-year bonds. Because as the interest rate changes, and typically goes up and the longer the maturity, then our exchange rates are going to change. The implied ones, the expected ones, are going to change as we go. So same thing. In Japan, we have that percentage for the 1-year bond and that percentage for the 2-year bond. So we care about that because we need to look so many years in the future. Okay, so how do we get the expected exchange rate in the future? This matters because as the exchange rate fluctuates, that's going to impact my actual profit in dollars, as we have seen in previous exercises. So that's where this formula comes in. If we want to know the expected future exchange rate, called implied spot rate, we used that term previously, we're going to go ahead and do this. Now, one thing that is a bit different from what we have done before, we always did 1 year only, or we didn't do multiple years. So that's why this exponent T comes in play now, because we have to check on it multiple years in the future. So let's get to it. Okay, so in the first year, what would be the expected exchange rate 1 year from now? This is the one that we have now. We want to know 1 year from now what's the expected exchange rate. So we're going to move this formula around to solve for expected future exchange rate. So we take the spot rate, the direct quote, by the way, and only 1 second. Okay, now we're ready. Okay, we take the spot rate. but the direct quote, because we're calculating the home currency. That's why we had to get that direct quote earlier. And we're going to multiply it by this piece here. We have done this in previous exercise already. So we take 1 plus the home rate. Now we're doing the first year. This is year 1. So I'm going to take the rate for year 1. Divided by 1 plus the foreign rate of year 1. And now if I follow this appropriately, everything here gets enclosed, and we put the exponent of, let me go ahead and, it doesn't let me, there. You can't see it, but that's where the 1 is. All right, so we will expect the exchange rate, it's now this, the direct quote, to be that. All right, so we hold to that number there. Let's figure out the 1 at the bottom. Now, if I can just click here, well, let me just do it again. So we take the spot rate now, right? Direct quote. But now we're going to multiply it by, only 1 second, because I already had that there. Okay, now that it's clear, we take the spot rate now, and we're going to use the information for year 2. So you got to be careful that we use all information for year 2. So spot rate times 1 plus the home rate on year 2 divided by 1 plus the interest rate. I think that's a spot rate earlier, the interest rate on year 2 of Japan, the foreign one. And all that has to be enclosed. So we can go ahead and give it, let me break it on the side for a second. That's where the 2 is, the interest rate on the second year. So we had those figures there, the year 2. And that is expected exchange rate 2 years from now. Now, why do we want those numbers? Because we want to convert those in dollars. All right. So we have a spot rate, which is going to be our dollars today. Then we're going to have the expected exchange rate in 1 year from now. And then we're going to have the expected exchange rate 2 years from now. So your project in Japan, you invest $1 million yen, I guess. Yeah, yen, the Japanese yen. So that's a negative 1 million yen. And that's your investment. So how much was that in dollars? Since that was done now, you take that and you multiply it by your direct quote. And that equals $9,090.91. That's how much you put out on the investment. So then you start receiving some cash flows. So everything goes according to plan. What you do is you take the cash flow a year from now and you multiply it by the expected exchange rate a year from now. So that's how much that cash was worth in dollars. The nominal amount, we have not done the present value yet. We're just converting those cash flows to dollars. So we do the same thing with the expected exchange rate 2 years from now. Now that we know the amount in dollars, we can go through the present value calculation using the weighted average cost of capital. So now it's just the same process we've done before. Take the cash flow, discount it by the discount rate, in this case, the weighted average cost of capital. I'm going to lock it in. And the exponent, since present, so that amount is the same because it went out today. But now we can go ahead and drag that. And these are the present values for those dollars in the future after we converted them from yen to US dollars. And as before, to get the NPV, you can just add them together. And that is the present value in US dollars of those cash flows, taking in consideration the discount rate, taking in consideration the expected exchange rates, which is influenced or decided by the current expected interest rates in the future, or not expected interest rates, but the set interest rates for those bonds in the future. And so this is the capital budgeting exercise that now includes exchange rate, which came about the difference in interest rates. And this can be done in, twist around the formula depending on the information you have and so on and so forth. But also, if you add forward contracts, we can then include the strategies that we spoke before when you have a spot rate that doesn't match the implied rate. We'll stop the video here, and that's the lesson for this part.